St. Louis, my air conditioning died. Did you guys know that Nashville is really hot? Yeah. Anyway, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about 2 times that real-life wolves have inspired me, and then I will open up the floor for questions and answers. Does that sound good? Say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Very good. Okay, so let me think. Caffeine helps me think. Almost exactly this time last year, I was traveling on tour for my book, Linger. It was a regular tour, not a driving one, so I was flying, and I had this idea that Linger might possibly end up somewhere on the New York Times bestseller list, but I wasn't sure. Every single Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the New York Times bestseller list is faxed in to the publishers. And so, at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this particular Wednesday, I was supposed to be flying to California, but I called my editor and said, David, at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I should be on the ground in California, but only just. This is my cell phone number. Please call me and tell me if my book is anywhere on that list. And he said, okay, May. This is all very well and good until halfway through my flight, my cell phone died. So in Chicago, panicked. Luckily, I'm traveling with my father and my sister, so I take my dad's cell phone, and I call my editor, David, at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will still be in California. My phone is dead, but call on this number and tell me if I'm anywhere on the list. And he said, okay, Maggie, we're good at that. And then my flight got delayed. So at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, instead of standing on California's green and verdant shores, I was instead just boarding the world's smallest passenger plane. And by the world's smallest, I mean it seats about 20 people, and you wind up the rubber bands. So there will be no news for me. I'm sitting there feeling desolate in the back. I'm right next to the porta potties. And the stewardess has just given the little, hello, those of you who are using electronic devices, now is the time to turn them off, because if you use them during the flight, the engine will catch fire and you'll all die. It'll be your fault. So I'm sitting back there feeling sad, and 10 minutes after this announcement, I hear, bye! What idiot has their phone turned on after that announcement? Beside me, my dad goes, it's my phone! Up the front of the plane.
She doesn't quite know that someone's using the phone, but she can sense, like the spidey sense, there's disturbance in the force.
Hello? Maggie? David? Are you ready to make a lot of noise? No. Your book just hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Those of you who are using electronic devices during this flight, we're going to die, and it'll be your fault. Then she served everyone on the plane drinks except for me. She came over to my sister. Would you like some water, honey? To my father, would you like some water, honey? None for you. We don't serve your kind. So this is all very thrilling to be on the New York Times bestseller list. Except for all of a sudden, I was feeling a lot of pressure. Because I was currently writing forever. And all I could think about was that tens of thousands of readers were going to finish reading the trilogy, and if they didn't like it, they were going to come after me in the night with pitchforks and torches. Kill the beast! Yes, I watched a lot of Disney as a child. And so I wrote forever like I had a gun pointed to my head. I put in everything I thought that readers would like. It was a very perfunctory draft, and 2 weeks before my deadline, I emailed it off to my editor. Hoping it would do all the things that I really wanted my books to do. Namely, I hoped it made readers cry, because that's what I like to do, is make people cry. And then I reread it and I realized, I hated it. So I sent my editor an email immediately afterwards and said, that draft I just sent you, you can't use it because I'm throwing it all away. I imagine the tears that my editor cried then were not the brain that I normally liked. But still, I was totally stuck, and what I needed was to find inspiration, something to make it a novel that I wanted to read, like I'd written Shiver and Linger, passionate for me as a reader. And so when I get stuck, I always turn to the real world. I turn to the real world of Seal for research. And I'd already done quite a bit of research for the wolves. As a matter of fact, I had watched so many PBS documentaries on wolves that my 2 Jack Russell Terriers had learned to howl in their sleep. No, I'm serious. I mean, normally they bark in their sleep, and they're quite small, so it sounds like Star Wars lasers. I was walking by the couch, and there's Peanut little legs are going, and I hear, "You're cut off. No more PBS for you." Anyway, so I've done a lot of research for the wolves already, but there's always more, and I found a group in Minnesota that caught wolves, collared them, and tracked them. They never found a wolf they didn't like to catch, collar, and track. And on their website, they had a long list of how all of these wolves had met their ends. Now, some of them were quite ordinary ways to die. They were shot by farmers, hit by assembly trucks, died from exposure, died from starvation, killed by other wolves, etc., etc. However, there was one entry that piqued my interest, and it was this: a wolf that had come to the side of a sinkhole, fallen in, been unable to climb out of it because of the size, and drowned in the mud in the bottom. And my first thought was, what a terrible way to die. And my second thought was, readers are going to cry so hard. I was off and running. So I finished the next draft in forever. It took me 4 months, and I completely lost my deadline, but it's fine. This was a draft that I was really happy with. But this was not the only time that I found wolves inspiring. Last year, I went on world tour, which is not a phrase I ever get tired of saying. I just like the sound of it. It's kind of like the excuse when my in-laws come over and I couldn't take your call because my agent called. It doesn't work, by the way. But I was on world tour, and my Hungarian publishers took me to a place just outside of Budapest where a man trained wolves for Hollywood movies. How many of you have seen Blood and Chocolate? How many of you have seen Season of the Witch? Did anyone other than Nicolas Cage mom see that? Okay, so I met those wolves, and my Hungarian publishers, they said, before I came to Hungary, they sent me an email and said, well, you can meet these wolves in person, but you will have to wear appropriate apparel, which we will provide. Now this set my mind working because I was all for appropriate apparel, but what kind of appropriate apparel were they thinking of that I could not provide for myself? And so I'm not sure if they were talking like the big padded arm things for like teaching German shepherds, big guard dogs, or if they were talking a leather bikini. Hungary is a strange place, so I get there, a little bit worried. It turns out appropriate apparel was 2 raincoats and a pair of galoshes. I could have provided this for myself, and without the little ducks on the galoshes, actually. Anyway, so we arrived, and we're met at the front gate by Zoltan, the wolf man. I feel like I should clarify that. He wasn't literally a wolf man. He was just a man who trained wolves. And so Zoltan brings us back, and there's these enclosures, and he has about 3 packs with 16 wolves in each of them, and he watches me suit up in my appropriate apparel, and he opens the gate just a little bit, and then he throws me in. And as I go flying through the air, he shouts, when they bite your hands, it's just their way of saying hello. They all wanted to say hello. And they were nothing like dogs. They all had this really pronounced pack behavior, and they were all growling over the privilege of who got to be next to me and get as much saliva on me as humanly possible, wolfly possible. And so after about 15 or 20 minutes, we've reached a kind of equilibrium. And I'm sitting, here we go. Okay, I'm sitting on a little wooden enclosure, and beside me is a wolf that has won the privilege to sit next to me. And we've already been quite intimate. He has actually had his tongue in my mouth. Gritty! I would not recommend it. And I'm quite fond of him. I mean, I wouldn't run away with him or anything, but no one really runs away with wolves these days. Anyway, ask Jacob Black. And I'm sitting there and Zoltan, the wolf man, comes right up to me. Have you ever heard a wolf howl up close? Oh yeah, I live in the suburbs of Virginia. We hear wolves howling all the... No, I have not heard a wolf howl up close. And Zoltan tips his head back and goes, oh. Now at this point I'm feeling a little perplexed because I've never actually heard a man howl up close. But beside me, my new best friend. And again, Zoltan tips his head back. Oh, I know you guys are all putting that on YouTube. And this time, my new best friend tips his head back and he howls as well. And not just him, but every other wolf around me puts their head back and howls. And they're nothing like dogs howling because they pick one pure note. So it sounds like a human chorus all around me instead of like dogs howling. And at this point, I have to put out there that I was not afraid because, well, first of all, if they were going to eat me, they'd had 15 or 25 minutes to do it. Second of all, if the Hungarian publishers really thought I was going to be eaten by wolves, they would have done this whole thing at the end of the tour instead of the beginning. And third of all, I've grown up with animals my whole life. Basically, if you take the story of Noah's Ark and replace the flood with the cornfield and 99.9% of the animals with Scottish Terriers, that was my childhood. So at this point, I'm not feeling I'm feeling quite comfortable. But even knowing that I was fine and being totally unafraid, when those wolves howled all around me, I felt the hair on my arms and on the back of my neck stand up, as something deep and primeval inside me said, Maggie Stiefvater, you're going to die. And this really is the reason why it's been so amazing to write about these wolves for these past 4 years, because I can't think of any other animal that is so awe-inspiring, so beautiful, so terrifying, but also so wonderful that it makes it seem like they're so human, at the same time they're so completely alien to us. And that if I didn't have wolves in my trilogy, it would just be about a girl who was really good at math and an emo boy that read German poetry. Not so good. Anyway, so it's been an amazing ride, and this is the part where I'm going to ask you guys if you have any questions or comments.
Real love to let me in. I wanna zero out and be born again. No more